Welcome to episode 28 of the Resurrection Podcast. I am Acusio Bivona. I used to look at my coaching calendar, completely booked with back-to-back client sessions and business operations from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, and my ego told me that this constant pressure was the exact reason I was successful. As a fitness and nutrition coach, I prided myself on my ability to handle massive amounts of chaos and carry the weight for my clients. I wore my stress like a badge of honor. And when you're a man who runs his own thing, you operate in an environment where speed, urgency, and putting out daily fires become your standard metrics of success. You convince yourself that the heavy weight you carry is just a necessary price of admission. But I was completely ignoring the massive physical toll that schedule was taking on my own hardware. I thought my packed calendar was making me a sharper operator and a better coach. I thought it was the only way to build the strongest version of myself. But the reality was the exact opposite. So today, we need to have a brutally honest conversation about what your daily calendar is actually doing to your mind. We're stripping away the illusion of busyness. And we're going to look at the exact reason why you feel completely numb by the time you get home, why you can't seem to find any real joy in the life you've built, and why your constant daily need for a cortisol spike is actually putting you to sleep. I remember I spent years fundamentally trapping myself in a cycle of stress, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. Over the last 10 years as a professional coach, building my business from the ground up, I unintentionally trained my body to rely on extreme pressure just to function. And I know this because I lived it. I spent so many years operating in pure survival mode, managing dozens of clients, putting out their daily fires, and pushing to scale my own brand, that my physical infrastructure began to require a crisis just to wake up in the morning. You've become completely addicted to the fire. Take a moment to look at how you operate when things are actually quiet. If you get a rare 2-hour block on the Tuesday afternoon with no meetings and no immediate emergencies, I'm guessing you don't use that time to rest. You don't use it to step back, get some clarity, and rebuild. Instead, if you're like me, your skin would start to crawl, and I still get that feeling sometimes. You feel deeply anxious. Because your body is so used to the chaos, the quiet actually feels like a threat. So you actively manufacture a crisis. You send an aggressive email that didn't need to be sent, or you pick a fight with a vendor, or you suddenly decide to completely tear down a project that was already running smoothly. You pull the fire alarm in your own building, just so you can feel the rush of putting it out. You mistake that frantic, chaotic energy for actual forward progress. But you're not moving forward. You're just spinning the tires, creating unnecessary noise, and actively burning out your own hardware. And the true turning point happened for me when I realized that this addiction to the fire had completely turned on me. Our bodies are built to handle short, intense bursts of stress. They're not built to hold the massive weight of a chaotic, burning business for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you force your engine to run on a constant drip of cortisol all day, your body eventually has to protect itself. It can't sustain that level of output without a total system failure. So it forcefully pulls the plug. It sedates you. This is exactly why you feel completely checked out by the time you leave the office. I remember walking to my car after a full day of coaching calls and feeling a heavy, undeniable numbness. I wasn't just physically tired. I was also emotionally wiped out. I would get home to the woman I was dating. She would try to hold a deep, vulnerable conversation with me, and I felt absolutely nothing. My mind was completely blank. My presence was entirely dormant. And I see the exact same thing happening to the men I coach. They get home and their wife tells them about their day, or their kids try to show them something they built, and they feel absolutely nothing. They're physically standing in the kitchen, but their presence is dormant. They can't connect with their family. They can't enjoy the beautiful home they paid for, and they can't even feel a sense of pride in their own comeback. They assume they're just tired from working hard to provide. But unfortunately, the truth is much darker. Their chaotic, poorly managed schedule has chemically sedated them to protect them from their own stress. Essentially, they're sleepwalking through the very life they worked so hard to build. So let's look at exactly how we try to solve this numbness. I know this pattern intimately because I ran it for years. When you realize you are emotionally dormant in your own living room, your first instinct is to try and force an escape. You assume you just need a better way to unwind after a chaotic day of putting out fires. So what do you actually do? In many instances, from my experience and from the men I've coached, you walk in the door, barely acknowledge your family, and immediately pour a heavy drink just to take the edge off. Or you sink into the couch and disappear into your phone. That's what I would do. Mindlessly scrolling for an hour while your kids play in the background. All of that except I don't have kids. Sometimes you isolate yourself in the garage, pretending to organize tools or work on a project. But in reality, you're just hiding from the overwhelming noise of your own house. You're trying to manually shut down your hardware, but you're using the exact wrong tools. Because you're trying to artificially relax an engine that's actively fighting a war to stay alive. It's a complete physical contradiction. You're sitting on the couch, physically exhausted, chemically sedated by your own body, but your mind is still running at full speed. You're trapped in a loop, thinking about the email you didn't send at 4 o'clock, the payroll you have to run on Friday, and the major client who's threatening to walk. You aren't actually resting. You're more so just temporarily paralyzed. And you can't use alcohol, isolation, or digital distraction to fix a hardware problem. You're just layering a cheap, temporary fix on top of a massive physical system failure. And every single evening you do this, you keep the strongest version of yourself buried and completely out of reach. So this is where we fundamentally rebuild the way you operate. If you're a man who runs his own thing, you're carrying massive momentum all day. You can't just slam the brakes on a high-performance vehicle at 6 and expect it not to spin out into the ditch. You can't walk out of a burning building, drive 20 minutes, and immediately sit down at the dinner table with a calm smile on your face. The change is entirely too violent for your physical infrastructure to handle. So you have to engineer a controlled descent. I'm not going to tell you to stop working hard. I'm definitely not going to tell you to lower your standards or care less about the business you're building. But instead, we build a strict, non-negotiable physical line between the chaos of your work and the reality of your home. You have to intentionally signal to your hardware that the fire is finally out. This means this transition must be deliberate. You don't take the final client phone call sitting in your driveway. You don't walk through your front door with your inbox open in your hand. You create a deliberate physical action to step down from the pressure before your hand ever touches the doorknob. Maybe it's sitting in your car for exactly 5 minutes in total silence without a screen. Maybe it's changing out of your work clothes the absolute second you walk in the door, entirely separating the man who fought the market from the man who leads the home. You must give your body the physical permission to stop producing the stress response so it doesn't have to forcefully pull the plug. And when you build a system to cleanly transition out of the chaos, you stop the cortisol trap in its tracks. Your body stops chemically sedating you, and you finally walk through your front door awake, entirely present, and operating as the strongest version of yourself. And when I tell a man who runs his own thing to build a physical line, his mind immediately fights it. And again, I know because I myself fought this for years. You assume I'm telling you to work fewer hours, or to sit and meditate for 45 minutes in your driveway, or to somehow lower your professional standards. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. You don't lower the standard, like I said earlier. You build that buffer zone to protect your hardware. And this execution is really brutally simple. But I will warn you right now. If you're addicted to the fire, it's going to feel really uncomfortable at first. You must claim the final 15 minutes between your business and your front door as a complete, non-negotiable blackout period. If you commute, those final miles are not for making one last sales call. They're not for returning voicemails. They're not for listening to an intense business podcast. And they are certainly not for replaying the argument you just had with a vendor. You turn the audio off and you drive in absolute silence. And if you work from a home office, you don't just close your laptop and instantly walk into your kitchen. The change in environment is too sudden. It's going to sound a little weird, but literally leave your house. Just walk around the block for 10 minutes without your phone. You're giving your hardware the mandatory time it needs to reset. You're letting the cortisol naturally drop before you demand that your body shift gears from leading a company to leading your family. And you sit in that silence, and you intentionally let the fire burn out. Don't touch the doorknob until the heavy, frantic momentum of the day is completely gone. And you must protect that buffer zone with your life, because it's the only thing standing between the chaos of the market and the peace of your own home. So, what can a Tuesday night look like when this controlled descent is finally running? Think about the old version of you. The version that walked in the door completely numb, chemically sedated by his own schedule. You would sit at the dinner table staring blankly at the wall while your family moved around you. You were an excellent provider financially, but as a man, you were entirely dormant. But now let's look at the man who honors the buffer zone. You finish that drive in silence. You let the engine idle down. When you finally turn the key in the front door, the change is undeniable. You're not dragging the heavy, burning wreckage of your workday into the house. Your infrastructure is calm, grounded, and fully awake. And when you walk in, the noise of the house doesn't overwhelm you. When your kids run up to you, you don't feel the immediate urge to push past them and hide. When your wife asks about your day, you don't give her a blank, exhausted stare. You actually have the focus to look her in the eye, listen to her words, and remain present in the room. You're no longer a ghost in your own house. You actually feel the life you have spent the last 10 years paying for. That's the real comeback, man. It has nothing to do with hitting a new revenue target, scaling a new division, or closing a bigger deal. You've already proven you can do that. The true comeback is reclaiming your own presence. It's stepping out of the cortisol trap, waking up from the numbness, and proving that you have the power to command your business without letting it destroy the strongest version of yourself. And I want to really focus on the most important truth of everything we just talked about. I remember sitting on my own couch, physically unable to get up. I would tell myself that my sacrifice was strictly for the future I was trying to build. I convinced myself that the extreme stress, the chaos, and the constant fire were all just the noble, necessary price I had to pay to scale my coaching practice and build a great life for myself and the women I was with. But I was completely lying to myself. And if you're running that exact same script in your head right now, you're lying to yourself too. You can't look your wife in the eye and tell her you're doing this all for her, and then consistently bring her the absolute scraps of your daily energy. You can't tell your kids that you're building a future for them while you sit entirely dormant on the couch, chemically sedated by your own poorly managed schedule. Your family doesn't want the things you buy them if the man providing them is a ghost in his own house. The money you provide is a baseline. It's a requirement of the job. But it's not the ultimate measure of your success. The ultimate measure is the actual condition of your hardware when you walk through that front door. Do you have the power to actually lead your home? Or are you just funding it from a distance? If you are a man who runs his own thing, you carry a massive weight. But that responsibility doesn't end when you pull out of the company parking lot. The real work, the work that actually matters, begins when you step into your house. You owe it to the people you love to give them the strongest version of yourself, not the exhausted, burnt out shell of a man who gave all his actual power and patience to his clients. I believe in you. You have solved massive, heavy problems to build your business from the ground up. You've weathered bad months, you've taken massive risks, and you've built something out of nothing. You are a highly capable man who knows exactly how to operate under intense pressure. But you can't outthink a physical trap. You can't outwork a crashing physical infrastructure, and you can't build a lasting legacy if you're completely asleep at the wheel by 6 o'clock every night. You have to make a choice. Don't bring the fire into your living room. Don't rely on a heavy pour of alcohol or isolation in your garage or a screen to manually shut down your hardware. Don't accept this heavy numbness as the permanent price of admission. If you are a man who runs his own thing, and you are sick and tired of feeling completely dormant the second you get home, if you're ready to finally wake up and take your power back, it's time to make the move. Go to CoachKuz.com and apply for the Resurrection Strategy Call. I will be the man in your corner. We will strip away the noise. We will locate exactly where your schedule is chemically sedating you, and we will install the strict, non-negotiable standards of the Resurrection Protocol to rebuild your physical engine from the ground up. Stop spinning the tires. Start the comeback. Tune the engine. Rebuild the machine. Resurrect the man. I am Acusio Bivona, and I will see you in the work.